Was I fair in saying that there is an air of optimism?
Well, definitely. APEC economies are 60% of the world GDP. APEC is growing 5.6% a year versus 3% for the rest of the world. So there is a sense of optimism in the Asia-Pacific region, but also for the world economies that the growth has resumed and is doing pretty well.
From Russia's perspective, how does the world look? How do its trading partners look?
Well, Russian growth also resumed. It's only 2% this year, maybe more, but it will be bigger next year. And we recovered from the economic crisis that was happening a couple of years ago. We have positive outlook. We are doing lots of investments with China. We just recently announced the Russia-Japan fund that has done some investments as well.
But surely the new sanctions imposed by the U.S. must be having an impact.
Well, frankly, Russia really adjusted to the economic environment. U.S. investors participated in Plus IPO and in Global Trucks IPO and co-invested with us last week. So frankly, we see business as usual with investing with leading economies over the world. Changi airports, for example, invested in Vladivostok airport with us. That airport grew 40% this year. So there is a sense of investment and optimism, but of course more can happen, and we hope that this summit will produce better investment results as well.
Is it business as usual when it comes to U.S.-Russia relations? Because it is a love-hate relationship. I mean, are Russian businesses frustrated with how bilateral ties are going?
Well, I think we are definitely at a low point right now, and there is so much more Russia and U.S. could do on the global stage, including North Korea issue, addressing Syria issue, addressing terrorism issue. And we know that U.S. business wants to work with Russia. We have a number of investments with U.S. businesses that are going very, very well. And we want this business dialogue to really continue, because only with dialogue it's important to solve problems in the world. For example, with Japan, we still have difficulties on the islands and differences on the islands, but economic dialogue is continuing, and it provides framework for political discussions as well.
There are expectations of a meeting between President Putin and President Trump at this APEC meeting, on the sidelines of this APEC meeting. That's not been confirmed yet. Would that be important in bridging or, I guess, to managing the damage?
Well, we believe it's important because dialogue is important. And frankly, Russia has a very open position. It wants to have good relationship with the U.S. It wants to have good relationship with many other nations. So dialogue between President Trump and President Putin are definitely very important.
I want to touch on RDIF because it was recently announced that they plan to invest in Saudi City. Give us a sense of where these investments are going.
Yeah, so we will be investing jointly with Russian companies in NEOM, which is a new city in Saudi Arabia, announced by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and it's really part of transformation visions that he put forward for Saudi Arabia. We had a great success in stabilizing oil price with oil deal with Saudi Arabia, which is good for producers, good for consumers, and we see that King of Saudi Arabia, Crown Prince, are really moving country to a big transformation, to have moderate Islam, to have economic growth, to have technology, and we are very proud to be part of NEOM City project. We are very proud to have good cooperation with Saudi Arabia.
But some say the recent crackdown is pretty confusing. How do you respond to that, and will that have an impact on the investment?
Well, we don't find it confusing. If you think about Singapore, for example, it really started transformation from attacking corruption. And I think attacking corruption is very important. We see it in China, we see it in Russia, we see it in many other nations. So frankly, the bold moves that are being taken by the leadership of Saudi Arabia make lots of sense. Now, of course, there needs to be a clear judicial process to make sure that everything is fair, but addressing corruption issue is important. And there is great excitement from investors about Saudi Arabia. I was at the investment conference Future Initiative 2 weeks ago. All of the major investors were there. They want to invest in Saudi Arabia, and they believe in the transformation vision of Saudi Arabia.
So would that decision, would that crackdown influence future plans to invest in Saudi Arabia?
Well, for us, no, we will continue to invest in Saudi Arabia. We just had 50 top Russian companies who visited Riyadh, who want to localize production. We have our petrochemical company who wants to build a major facility there. So we'll continue to invest in Saudi Arabia and work with Saudi Arabia.
RDIF has been pretty active in the IPOs in Russia this year. Is there a sense that they're there's a lack of interest in these IPOs, that there's a need for a sovereign wealth fund to take part in it?
Well, not really, because, for example, in a huge IPO of 1.5 billion of Ian Plus, we participated for a couple of $100 million with our partners, and the rest came from China, the rest came from many other investors. But we'd like to support some of our companies because we bring with us typically 5 or 6 sovereign wealth funds together, and they're long-term investors that provide stability to the stock. So we'd like to invest with 5, 6 funds. We believe it brings good investment base to some of the Russian companies, and also educate some of the sovereign wealth funds on investment opportunities in Russia. But we're also doing lots of private deals in Russia and abroad, including infrastructure in Russia, such as toll roads, airports, and many other sectors.
Is there enough interest, foreign interest, in Russian IPOs?
Well, we see that Ian Plus's IPO showed 1.5 billion was raised just last week. So yes, there is interest. We had the Detsky Mir IPO. We received 90% IRA on our investment, and 80% of demand came from foreign market, including 30% from the US. So the interest may be less than before, but it is there.
Kirill, give us a sense of the IPO pipeline in Russia. How optimistic are you?
Well, there are lots of SPOs that are going to be happening, secondary private offerings. Mother and Child, which is a health clinic, is thinking about it. Severstyle just raised some money. So it's a combination of IPOs and SPOs that will be happening. But also we believe major drive to attract investment to Russian infrastructure. And we are building a toll road in Moscow jointly with Saudi partners, with Chinese partners. So there are major infrastructure opportunities available. For example, in St. Petersburg Airport, 6 sovereign wealth funds participated with us, including China, Saudi, UAE, Kuwait, and many others.
Okay, just one final question. Look into the crystal ball for us and see which are the biggest risks for this part of the world in 2018?
Well, North Korea. And just generally, I think keeping investment in technology, keeping what's going on. I think China is offering very good vision of one belt, one road, and having this connective positive view is very important. If Asia moves away from it, it will be negative.